She wasn't on the list. That's what Merle Vaughn said as my wife's heartbeat faded on the other side of a locked gate. Flashing red lights, paramedics shouting through metal bars, and this woman tapping on her iPad like she was denying a coupon at a checkout line. Ambulance access requires a 72-hour code request. "Mr. Dorn," she said. I remember my mouth was dry, but not from fear, from calculation, because I knew that every second she wasted quoting policy, my wife was dying 20 feet away. When the gate finally opened after the sheriff cut through the padlock, it was mine at 12. And by then, Thessa was gone. So when I say I buried my wife because of a woman with a clipboard and a God complex, I'm not being dramatic, I'm being exact. My name is Cavell Dorn. I used to build access protocols for Homeland Defense. The gates, the emergency overrides the systems that were supposed to save lives. After I retired, I thought I'd earned quiet sunset walks, garden hoses, my wife's laughter echoing through the kitchen. We moved to Willowere Crest because she said the desert air felt clean. Turns out the air was clean, but the people running the place weren't. Merle Vaughn, HOA president, rule enforcer, suburban dictator, believed order was salvation. She wore her power like perfume. You could smell it before she even spoke. She smiled like a realtor, quoted bylaws like scripture, and welded gates shut because she thought safety was something you could measure in silence. The morning Thessa collapsed, I called 911 at 8:07. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. The gate didn't open for 12. That's the number I still hear when I close my eyes, 12 minutes of breathless waiting. 2 days after the funeral, the first envelope came. A violation notice. Harassment of board member during emergency response. $350, due in 10 days. The timing was surgical. Just long enough for the casseroles to stop coming for the house to go quiet, for her toothbrush to still sit by the sink. I didn't cry. I just pinned that notice to the fridge with an old emergency magnet and waited. Then came 2 more letters. One said I'd flown a drone illegally, the same one I used to check sunlight for her garden. Another fined me for unauthorized vehicle coordination. That vehicle was the ambulance. It would have been funny if it didn't taste like rust in my throat. That night I walked the perimeter. No phone, no notes, just my eyes. Every emergency gate was sealed. No sensors, no override toggles, no reflective markings. They'd removed everything that made the system legal. They'd built a prison and called it a neighborhood. Mrs. Ulrich, 2 houses down, whispered to me through her roses that they made the EMTs wait when her husband had a stroke. 5 minutes, she said. He was gone before they reached the door. Then she turned off the hose and locked her door. Everyone was afraid of Merle Vaughn. I went home and pulled out old files, FEMA codes, municipal guidelines templates I'd written years ago. And that's when I saw it. The gate waiver on record was forged. The signature belonged to a man who'd moved out of state 2 years before it was filed. They'd copied, scanned, pasted, and lied to the city. It wasn't a mistake. It was concealment. I could have reported it then, but I didn't. I sat in my office staring at the empty chair across from me, the one where Thessa used to sit with her tea. And for the first time since the funeral, I asked myself if I was losing it. Maybe grief was twisting everything. Maybe I was turning her death into a mission because it was easier than mourning. Maybe Merle was right. Maybe I was unstable. Then the next morning I found a flyer on my porch. HOA Founders Day Celebration. All video and recording equipment prohibited. The last line was bolded. Failure to comply may result in fines and removal. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. She was tightening control, locking down visibility, preparing the neighborhood for her version of the truth. So I called someone who still believed in mine. "Tavian," I said, "you still handle infrastructure violations." My son paused. "Yeah." "Why?" "Because you're going to want to see what Willowere's been hiding." When the next letter arrived, it wasn't from the HOA. It was a legal notice, defamation, trespass, unauthorized surveillance, signed by Merle Vaughn herself. They'd changed their title from HOA Board to Neighborhood Governance Council. A rebrand, bureaucratic camouflage. That's when I almost gave up. I remember sitting at the kitchen table looking at her picture thinking, "You'd tell me to stop." But then I found her old note taped inside a drawer, her handwriting faded ink. "Keep breathing, Cavell. You only lose when you go quiet." so I didn't. I met Orrin Blythe that night, the HOA secretary, nervous man hands trembling like he'd been living under constant threat. "I saw your inspection photo," he said. "You're right, the gate's illegal." He hesitated. "She made me send the waiver, said it was expedited under Homeland clearance. I told him forgery carried federal time." He nodded, eyes wet. "I didn't think she'd use it to block an ambulance." He opened a drawer, slid over a flash drive. Meeting minutes, recordings, everything. On that drive was Merle's voice. "We'll call it a privacy measure," she said. "No one audits a gate unless someone dies, and if that happens, we'll have rewritten the story." Her laugh still echoes in my skull. I sent that audio to Tavian without a word. An hour later, he replied, "We're in." By the next morning, the Department of Justice had an open inquiry. Tavian flew in wearing a jacket that still carried the posture of federal authority. He didn't hug me, just said, "Walk me through it." We covered the dining table in evidence photos, forged forms, Orrin's confession. When I played the recording, his jaw tightened. "This is obstruction," he said, "and it's about to become federal." We worked for 2 days straight, no sleep, just coffee and rage. Orrin came over pale but ready. He gave a formal statement he'd transmitted the fake waiver under coercion, heard Merle instruct the board to delay emergency responders for non-compliant residents. Tavian logged it all. Chain of custody, digital signatures, every piece airtight. Then he said, "We hit them financially first." He had me file a claim with their insurance provider, quiet professional, full of evidence but no accusation. The kind of email that lands on a lawyer's desk and detonates silently. Within hours, the HOA's portal displayed a red banner. Insurance review pending. Emergency claims suspended. That was the first crack in her empire. Merle panicked. She tried to lock down their records-ordered files, removed computers, packed up. Orrin tailed the moving van, called Tavian with the address. Within hours, the storage unit was tagged by federal warrant. Evidence seized. The board didn't even know yet they were still drafting denial statements. But the real kill shot came from the data vendor hosting the HOA's private servers. Tavian had issued a preservation order, and there it was in black and white: user, Vaughn admin action, manual override, gate lockdown, Southern Lane, 08:14 a.m., exactly 62 seconds after I'd called 911. Not an error, a decision. The next morning, the community center was packed. Every resident, every whisper of rumor drawn to the promise of spectacle. Merle stood at the front with her clipboard like a shield. "This is not a trial," she said into the mic. "This is a routine board meeting." I stepped forward. "My name is Cavell Dorn. On July 18th, my wife suffered cardiac arrest. The ambulance was blocked for 10 minutes by a gate. You welded shut." Gasps rolled through the crowd. Merle tried to regain control. "Mr. Dorn is exploiting personal tragedy for Tavian," stepped out from the crowd. "Special Agent Tavian Dorn, Critical Infrastructure Protection Unit. This board is under active federal investigation for obstruction of emergency services, forgery of municipal documents, and tampering with digital infrastructure." The crowd froze. 2 agents moved to the front, silent, steady. Tavian handed a folder to the city clerk. Inside is a transcript of President Vaughn instructing members to reframe delays as unauthorized responder behavior, and a log showing she manually locked the emergency gate. Merle's hand shook around the mic. "This is harassment. You can't just—" Tavian's voice cut clean. "We have a sworn statement from your own secretary confirming coercion and forgery. You don't have to speak, ma'am. The evidence already does." You could feel it, the air shifting. The crowd didn't cheer. They just watched her crumble under the weight of what she'd built. One agent stepped forward. No words, just the cold click of handcuffs echoing through the courtyard. That's where the story ends for her. Not in a courtroom, not on the news, just there, surrounded by the people she thought she controlled, staring at the son of the man she tried to silence. Weeks later, city crews dismantled the southern gate. No ceremony. Just the metallic scream of welds breaking bolts falling into gravel. They replaced it with a clean emergency lane and a small steel plaque that read, "This lane stays open, always." I didn't cry when they lifted the last piece away. I just breathed. For the first time in months, the air didn't taste like metal. Because here's what I learned: when power hides behind policy, silence is its favorite weapon, and the moment you break that silence, it all falls apart.